Welcome back, Fumblers. Today, we're going to be discussing NFC and AFC Conference Championships. I can't believe it's already here. The full season of football is almost done. And of course, we're on the road to the Super Bowl, but we have some games to discuss. We have winners, we have losers, and we have a little bit of a preview of the NFC and the AFC Championship. Brooke, let's get started.
Let's get into it. I can't believe there's only 2 weekends of football left, and then we have to go through withdrawals until September. I'm so upset this weekend, or this whole season went by so fast this weekend too. But we had 4 big games across Saturday and Sunday. So we thought we were going to do a little bit of a kind of a winners, losers award ceremony of who happened to be there were 4 losers, there were 4 winners, but who were the biggest winners and losers in our minds? I will start off with something I think that we will both agree with, and probably everyone listening will agree with. The biggest loser in my eyes from this past weekend, it's got to be the Detroit Lions. No one lost bigger than this team did. They entered the divisional round weekend as the Super Bowl favorites, and they ended up losing in a big way to the Commanders, 45-31. They were trailing the Commanders pretty much the entire game. It just started getting really sad at the end. I remember just watching on my couch. Everyone was thinking the Lions were, of course, going to win this game. We're going to win the conference or the championship game. Then they were going to go win the Super Bowl. And then I just couldn't believe that the game kept progressing and the Commanders just kept pulling away. And they kept panning to all of the sad Lions fans, especially in the fourth quarter. And I was just like, oh my God, I can't take this anymore, because I think they were saying this was one of the first times the Lions have ever had home field advantage in the playoffs. And so it was like, these people finally, they've waited all this time. They finally get to go to a game. You think these people are lifelong fans. They're so ready. This has been their season. They've only lost 2 games. And then the impossible happens after the bye. They lose to the Commanders. Their season has cut short. Cut to after the game, there is the press conference with Dan Campbell. If you look up Dan Campbell on TikTok right now, the first thing, at least that comes up for me, is Dan Campbell crying. And that is not what you want to see if you're a Lions fan. But he just, yeah, I mean, of course, he's so emotional. That's part of what makes him such a good coach, is that he just cares about his team so much. He cares about his guys, and they just came up short and they couldn't do it. And we talked about last time, this was something that the Lions were really after because their roster was so good and their coaching staff was so good. And this was going to be the last time that they would have this, of course, group of players, but then also the coaches, Ben Johnson and Aaron Glenn on the OC and DC side. So those are no longer with us. And Ben Johnson is now the coach of the Bears. That happened, 2 days after they lost that game? And the fans are so mad. Like, I am loving the discourse around the fans that are so bitter. I think the Lions fans, because they really thought this was their year, they are in the comments. They are everywhere. They're saying that he was prepping for interviews instead of prepping for the game. Good riddance. You guys can have him. He'll never make it as a head coach. And I'm like, this was the guy that you guys were obsessed with all season. And then suddenly you have that loss, and he immediately jumped ship to a rival NFC North team, being the Bears. And people are understandably mad. But I think now we're going to see, is Aaron Glenn going to stick around? Are they going to have to fill 2 roles on that coaching staff? How is it going to look? Ben Johnson being in the same division and knowing so much about the Lions and working with Caleb Williams to bring the Bears hopefully to be a winning team. I'm very curious to see how that will look. But, the Lions, they just couldn't pull it out this year. They really choked when they needed to succeed. They had 4 turnovers. Jared Goff didn't play his best. He had 2 interceptions. There was a fumble. There was an interception on a trick play. And I really just think playoff games are won by the team that self-sabotages less. And the Lions self-sabotaged so much. And now they're out. Noelle, what do you think?
And it's really sad because not only do you have a great head coach who really cares about his players, you just see the team dynamic and everybody's eyes were on the Super Bowl. And we could feel it. Fans could feel it. They had home field advantage. All of the pieces were there to put them in the best position to move on. And here walks in Jaden Daniels and the Washington Commanders walking into their house and honestly kind of destroying them.
Mhm.
And we saw Jared Goff just kind of slowly start to unravel. And I feel like once you see the quarterback making mistakes, it's just kind of like a catalyst for a
Totally.
lot of other mistakes to happen just across the offense and the defense. And it wasn't the best game and that we've seen of Jared Goff. And unfortunately, it means that they won't be going to the Super Bowl anymore. And on top of all of that, now there's a lot of questions about their coaching staff.
Mhm.
It could be a completely different team next year, at least based on who's going to be leading the teams with the coaches. But it does seem like a lot of the players will be sticking around. I don't know who is, going to be entering the free agency for next year, but overall, if you look back like 3 years ago, or maybe even beyond that, the Lions were like in their rebuild stage.
Mhm.
And this was the year where I think that they were due. However, if they are able to keep a lot of their key players around next year, then I think that they have a chance. And as someone who is more an AFC fan, the NFC, the Lions were, I think, a lot of people's favorites to make it to the Super Bowl. So it's sad.
Absolutely.
Lions fans, we feel you. We're here for you, but now it's time to root on some the Commanders, maybe.
Not for Lions fans.
Not for
I feel
Lions
like
fans, but
this has got to be the most painful loss in Lions history. I can't
yeah.
imagine a bigger game, a bigger season when everyone thought they had it. Like, this is going to be like either they're going to completely forget about it or they're going to use it as fuel next season to come out angrier than ever and use that emotion to just absolutely dominate next year. I don't know.
Yeah.
Only time will tell. I think that they'll be able to make the best out of the situation, but it's just really tough when everything goes your way during the regular season. You have that bye, and then off to Cancun they go.
Off to Cancun. I mean, hopefully the pina coladas are nice and cold for them.
Yeah, they'll need six.
They'll need a lot.
They'll need a lot. But RIP Lions fans, we're thinking about you guys this week. And, you still have a very good coach, very good roster. And we hope that next year feels a little bit different. But that
It's
brings me
always
to my winner of the divisional round weekend. This
mm.
should not come as any surprise either. We have Mr. Rookie quarterback Jaden Daniels.
Ooh.
This man, oh my gosh, you cannot say enough good things about him. When we were talking about the Commanders last week on our podcast and how they had won the wild card weekend, and we were like, you know what? Like, they can lose against the Lions, and Jaden Daniels still had a historic rookie season. He still did so well. He has so much to be proud of. They can go home with their heads held high and they can focus on next year. No one expected anything from the Commanders this year. They already did more than they ever thought was possible. Wonderful work, Jaden Daniels. Now he beats the team that was the favorite to be the Super Bowl winner. And we're all just left speechless. I think this really got a lot of people giving Jaden Daniels even more respect than before. He
Yeah.
played his best when his absolute best was needed. And that is the type of quality you see in the absolute best players. In this game against the Lions, he passed for 299 yards, rushed for 50 yards, and had 2 touchdowns. So he played outstanding. And this is the first time in 33 years that the Commanders are going to the NFC Championship game. And you could, maybe say they had it. I mean, I don't think there's anything anyone else is saying other than Jaden Daniels, to be honest. Like, sure, they made
Yeah.
some roster changes. They got a new head coach. You got to give Dan Quinn his flowers too. But like Jaden Daniels, it's so funny. I feel like Vic Fangio, the Eagles defensive coordinator, said it best when he said, Jaden Daniels is a young quarterback by birth certificate, not by age, or not
Yeah.
by, what did it say? Not by experience. I feel like I wrote the quote down wrong.
I know I saw it. I saw it. I don't
Not by
remember.
skill. Now I need to
Not
look
by
up the
skill,
quote
yeah.
because I'm like, I swear I need to get this right. Vic Fangio, I was like, this is exactly how I feel.
Yeah, I mean,
Not by
he's
tape.
not by tape. Okay.
He's the best He's a young quarterback by birth certificate, not by tape.
Not by
Okay,
tape.
you know what? I butchered that. I'm sorry, Vic Fangio, for that. But I think that that is what everyone is saying, is that rookie quarterbacks don't just go around and do this. And he did it. And he made it happen. And now they are going to face off against the Eagles. So absolutely insane. I'm just so proud of him. Our sweet, sweet Jaden Daniels, who was picked second overall in the draft. A lot of people were worried about his size, and that guy works so hard and has just the best composure of any rookie quarterback I think we've seen.
Yeah, and I think that that matters, especially in huge games, that probably some of the biggest games of your life, when you have a quarterback that can keep his cool and keep his composure, even when there's so much pressure around this one moment. I think those are the ones that succeed. I want to say like a diamond analogy, but it's not coming to me. Like diamonds require a lot of pressure, and
Diamonds are made under pressure.
Made under pressure. I forget what the quote is, but anyways, we have seen this guy just completely flourish, and this isn't going to be the end for the Commanders. And I've seen on so many news outlets so far that a lot of people around the league are looking and they're watching, and it's going to be a tough battle. Dare I say, I might even, I almost want to say that the Commanders will beat the Eagles this weekend.
I know.
Because we've seen how good he is just in the clutch in these final moments of games, and he just knows how to win. Very similar to Patrick Mahomes, which I don't want to make any comparisons, but it's those quarterbacks who just find a way to win that are successful. And we're kind of seeing this all right in front of our eyes with Jaden. So we're super proud of him. I know I saw this quote from CJ Stroud, and he was basically giving Jaden his flowers. And he's like, normally don't root for other teams, but I'm rooting for my guy, Jaden Daniels and the Commanders, which is great to see because they're both from the same part of Southern California, which is
the IE baby.
The IE baby.
IE boys.
Yeah, we love to see it.
Their friends.
Yeah.
But yeah, let's talk about that matchup against the Eagles, because right now the Eagles are favored to win the whole Super Bowl. They're favored to win this game, of course, and then they are now, as of Tuesday, the favorite in, Vegas betting books to win all of the Super Bowl. Obviously, that doesn't mean anything, though, because the Lions were the favorites to win the Super Bowl and the Commanders absolutely destroyed them. So while the Eagles are still technically favored in this game, I don't think that that's something that the Commanders that matters to them. The Commanders haven't been favored in any of these games, and have won every single one of them. So we have our two NFC East rivals. We have the Commanders versus the Eagles. They have played, of course, twice this past season. First, the Eagles beat the Commanders 26-18 in November. And then they had a recent game at the end of December where the Commanders beat the Eagles by 3. But if you remember, that was the game where Jalen got injured and he had a concussion and had to be taken out. So it's a win with an asterisk that they didn't have their starting quarterback, Jalen Hurts, and they will have Jalen Hurts this weekend, of course. So it is looking good for the Eagles in terms of the historicals there, but I think that, as we've seen and as football fans know, you can't always look at a regular season record and expect to see the same in the playoffs. Like, there are teams like the Bills will beat the Chiefs every time in the regular season, and then you get to the playoffs and Patrick Mahomes is beating Josh Allen. I think he's 3-0 against him in the playoffs. So it's just that different level of pressure that some teams rise to the occasion, like we're seeing Jaden Daniels is absolutely doing. And not that the Eagles haven't. They, of course, they were in the Super Bowl 2 years ago. But I think we'll see what happens this weekend. I also want to say it's really interesting if you look at the Eagles this past season, they really barely lost any games. Their record is 14-3. They were, of course, first in the NFC East. They lost the 3 games they lost. That was the one to the Commanders that Jalen Hurts was out, which, again, lost with an asterisk. And they also lost by 1 point to the Falcons early in the season. Do you remember, we watched the end of that game and then Kirk Cousins just had an amazing drive for the Falcons. We're like, whoa, maybe Kirk and the Falcons are going to actually be really good, because that was a miracle that they came back in the last minute. Yeah. So they lost that game, which is kind of okay, they were winning the whole game. Kirk Cousins did his thing once, fine. And then they just had one loss to the Bucks, which actually was like the 33-16 like blowout loss. But then after that, they won 10 games in a row. So the Eagles now are showing us, after they kind of fell apart last season, that they are very capable of being the winning team that they know they are, that the Eagles fans know they are. And I think it's going to be a really tough battle. I really kind of want the Commanders to win just
Yeah.
because I feel like they can. My question for you, Noelle, is do you think, say the Eagles win this game and they go to the Super Bowl in New Orleans,
Yeah.
do you think that Jason Kelce regrets retiring when he did? Considering all of the success he has in his retirement and all the fun he's having, but he
Hmm.
retired like at a very kind of bitter end last season. Do
Yeah.
you think he wishes he stuck around for one more?
Perhaps, but I also think he's been having such a great time in his retirement that
Mhm.
maybe there's no looking back. I haven't seen him with any quotes of him saying that he's ready to come back, and maybe I missed it, and he is waiting for someone to tap him back in. But he has been so booked and busy. You see him as, announcing certain games, and he's flying bi-coastally from LA back to the
Mhm.
East Coast. And I feel like it's a good life for him. But at the same time, is there ever the question of my team is making it back to the Super Bowl and I'm ready for vengeance?
Yeah, like I can't imagine a better feeling as a football player than winning the Super Bowl, but maybe the
Yeah,
second best is what Jason Kelce has been able to do with his career just
yeah,
one season out.
yeah. And I mean, he has his kids. Isn't another on the way with
Yeah,
Kylie?
there's like
So
a baby number four
yeah,
coming in
I'm
hot.
sure I'm sure he's hurting, he's ready. He can sleep in a little bit, maybe depending on what his schedule is, but um that is a fun idea to even think that he would just like somehow come back and pop back in
Oh my God, for the Super Bowl.
for the
I mean, I
Super
would
Bowl.
just be pissed if I spent so much of my life on this team and we had the Super Bowl lost to the Chiefs. And the very next year, like they started off really strong and then lost like the last seven of their games. They lost the wild card round of the playoffs. And then now my team goes and wins the Super Bowl, like the second I retire. So just food for thought, but I think of all
Yeah.
people to feel bad for, Jason Kelsey's not one of them. My
Mm.
last note is I did see one really funny TikTok of someone saying if Jaden Daniels wins the Super Bowl, he should just retire. Like first rookie ever win the
Yeah,
Super Bowl, just retire, end it there, mic drop. That's all he needs to do. And I'm like,
that's all.
honestly, that would be such an iconic move. Like he peaked and then he's done.
And then he's done. That'd be wild. But you know that these athletes, they want more. They want more and more.
They're hungry.
They're hungry. Exactly.
Okay, Noelle, who were your losers, winners of divisional round?
All right. I'm ready to first announce my loser.
Okay.
And if you folks were watching the games this weekend, I think it's very apparent. This was a snow game that I'm referencing, and a team that is currently in Cancun because they did not make it to the playoffs. But my loser this week is I'm not going to call out a specific player, but I'm going to say the Ravens fumbles. That is
Yeah,
what cost them the game.
it's brutal.
In the Ravens Bills game that happened in Buffalo this weekend, I know we talked about on our last episode, there was some snow involved. And of course, the fans are going to be crazy at out there in Buffalo. And there were some questions about whether or not the cold will impact Lamar's play. But I would say overall, Lamar had somewhat of a decent game when you're looking at the complete season that he's had, when you're comparing his performance in the regular season versus playoffs, he is so much better, unfortunately, in the
Hmm.
regular season. Right now, in the playoffs, I believe he's 3-5. So, not a great ending to his story, especially since he's still one of the front runners as an MVP candidate.
Hmm.
But of course, the results of this game ended in the Ravens unfortunately losing to the Bills 25-27. And it was just 2 points that they lost by. I will now call out to specific players because I don't want to blame it on anybody, but as I mentioned, Lamar didn't have one of his best games. I would say that he is a little bit better in the regular season versus the postseason. Um, he had an interception and he had a fumble, and that fumble led to a Bills touchdown shortly
Mm-hmm.
after that. So there were just a lot of these mistakes that just kept adding up. If you're looking at Lamar's season overall, he had 4 interceptions. So just this one interception in this game, of course, it's a playoff divisional game, and those are just mistakes that you have to try to rein in as much as you can. But unfortunately for Lamar, he didn't have one of his best games. Um, and the other player that I want to refer to is Mark Andrews. And if
Ugh.
you guys have been following Mark Andrews, he's been on the Ravens about the same time as Lamar. They were both in the
Mhm.
same draft class. They know each other very well. He's known as Mr. Reliable on the team. Um, and unfortunately, he also had a forced fumble and he dropped a pass for a 2-point conversion that would have led them to, I believe, tie the game at the very end
Yeah,
with a minute and 35 seconds left.
that was
And
tough.
unfortunately, it was another 2 mistakes that just kept adding up. And in a press conference, Lamar kept saying, like, I'm tired of this. These fumbles, man, we can't let them happen. And as the Girls Don't Fumble podcast, we are counting every one of them
We got
in
a
this
report on the
game. We
fumbles.
got a report on the fumbles. So it was tough. It was a great win for the Bills, of course, and for Bills Mafia. Unfortunately, the those Ravens fumbles were something that they could not recover from in somewhat of uh, I guess a bright light from this whole story. Somehow Lamar is still the front runner to in the MVP
Oh,
conversation.
T, good for him.
And I'm not exactly sure why, but I think that there's a lot of factors that go into play. Something else to consider with Lamar is he was selected as the first team All Pro as the quarterback position, and there's only one that gets that. Now, the people who vote for the All Pro are the same people who vote for the MVP candidacy. So this is why a lot
Mm.
of people still think that he is going to be the winner. Of course, time will only tell. But at the end of the day, the Ravens are still good. They still have a Harbaugh as a coach.
Hmm.
Lamar was just signed $260 million in his contract extension. And you have a great team. And unfortunately, this was just not their year. But Brooke, I would love to know if the Chargers were still in the
Oh
playoffs,
God.
would you rather play the Bills or would you rather play the Ravens?
Oh my gosh. If the Chargers were still in the playoffs, I hate to say it, I'd rather play the Ravens. The Chargers didn't play the Bills this year, but they did play the Ravens and they were in it for the first half and then they kind of fell apart towards the end. I also just think the lore of the Harbowl is just like too cute. Like
Yeah,
I
it's
love
fun.
like those brothers together. However, what I'll say is that John Harbaugh always gets the best of Jim Harbaugh. Like whenever like they had the Harbaugh as the actual Super Bowl, Ravens versus 49ers, when Jim was the coach of the 49ers, he beat them too. So maybe I need to change my answer and be brave and take on the Bills because little brother John Harbaugh is always coming after big brother Jim and getting the best of him. Actually, reverse. Jim's the younger brother, but he looks older. Anyways, I'll choose the Bills. I
I
changed my
love
mind.
it.
I think we have a
Okay.
chance.
Okay, even if they had home field advantage.
Oh God, in the snow? No. I don't think we win either way. I,
I have faith. I have faith.
whoever has the most fun.
We just want both teams to have fun.
Yeah.
At least as long as one of the brothers win, we're good.
Yeah, and Thanksgiving table will be happy.
Yes. But that is my losers for this week. Congrats to Bills Mafia. We'll get to discussing the Chiefs Bills game and the AFC rematch in just a little bit. But I want to talk about my winner really quick. And this guy is someone we talk about quite a lot on the podcast.
Hmm.
He has been setting records left and right. He had a little bit of a looking at his full career in football. This isn't one of his best regular seasons, but in the playoffs, you want this guy on your team. He is clutch, and that is no other than Travis Kelce.
Ugh, our
Now,
king.
he's the best, and one of the reasons why that I think that he is a winner. Did you guys see Taylor Swift's outfit going in to Arrowhead. I'm
She
sorry.
looks so good.
And let me just say, I did some research on her outfit. She is head to toe Chanel. And
Rich.
there's a website called, I think, TaylorSwiftStyle.com. It calculates the price of every single item that she was wearing. It was $25,000 on average, just about.
Of
Head to
course.
toe,
And that's
everything
like
that she was wearing. It's crazy.
nothing. She has over $1 billion. That's like
Yeah,
if I
she's
were to go
fine.
pick up the latest like fashion item at Ross, like it's fine.
Yeah,
It's like, sure,
exactly.
get me the full Chanel.
Yeah, so of course when you have arm candy like Taylor Swift, you're already gonna be a winner.
Winner
But
every week.
as we said, Travis Kelce, he has had quite an amazing year. If we're looking at his full career, he had his best football years from 2020 to 2023. But looking at just this past game or in the playoffs overall, Travis Kelce has had 172 catches, 2,020 yards, and has scored 20 touchdowns in 23 games within the playoffs. This is just the playoffs in his career. And let's not forget, he's 35. So he's still
Big
setting
boy.
records in this playoffs or looking at his full playoff career. He's first in carries, second in receiving yards and touchdowns. So this guy just can't be stopped, at least when it comes to these big games. And when you have Mahomes too, there will always be an answer. But I wanted to announce that as my winner for from this past weekend.
I think that's such a good choice. Like you said, if you're dating Taylor Swift, you're always a winner. But he really comes alive in the playoffs. He was getting a lot of hate in the beginning of the season for people being like, he took too much time off. He was on the world tour. He was drinking. He was partying. He was out with Taylor. Like, he can't play football anymore. And he turned it on towards the end of the season. And Patrick Mahomes was in a press conference and he said, that's playoff Trav. Like, that's my
Yeah,
guy. Like,
playoff
he
Trav.
knew, he's like, I can always count on that guy in the playoffs. And that's why those two are such a good duo. And Travis Kelce is always going to be a winner in the playoffs and maybe even get the three-P as, they're trending on their way to do so, but still not the favorite. It's kind of weird.
All right, guys, let's talk about this last game day preview for the AFC Championship. I would almost consider this to be our Super Bowl for anybody who is in the AFC. Like, this is the two teams that like you want your teams to beat. So we're talking about the Chiefs versus the Bills. And we're expecting this, since we're talking about weather recently, we're expecting this one to be cold as well because as you all know, this is the Arrowhead Invitational. Every year, we just so happen to be here during the AFC Conference Championship. And one thing to kind of highlight about this game is this is going to be a 2020 AFC Championship rematch. These teams have faced each other. And of course, Mahomes came out with the win. But looking at some of the stats, Mahomes is actually 3-0 against Josh Allen in the playoffs. And if there's any year that this could be a win for the Bills, I think it could be this one, especially knowing that the only loss that the Chiefs had this year was against the Bills. The Bills defeat the Chiefs earlier this season, 30-21. And when we were all entering into the regular season, we know that they lost Stephon Diggs, and he was a key component to their offense last year. And they made a few changes. They picked up some guys in free agency. They got Amari Cooper. They have Keon Coleman. And while we wouldn't say that any of their guys on the Bills offense is like stars at the level of a Jamar Chase or a Justin Jefferson, at least not yet, they have at least exemplified a very complete team, especially with them, how they've been performing this whole season. So we're very excited about it. And one stat that really stood out to me was the Bills have the second most points per game throughout the whole season. Meanwhile, the Chiefs defense have allowed the fourth fewest points allowed. So it's going to be a good matchup on both sides. Of course, we're really going to be looking at how Josh and Mahomes really play because those are their key weapons. Both of them know how to win, especially Patrick Mahomes. And I feel like for this game, the Chiefs have their eyes on the Super Bowl, and the Bills are
Hmm.
the only team, the only thing, the only barrier that's standing in the way of them getting that three-peat, which if you're talking stakes, no team has ever had a three-peat, won three Super Bowls in
Hmm.
a row. So the Chiefs are hungry. They can't wait for this game. I know the Bills Mafia, everybody is excited for this game. But a few things that stand out to me, we know how we feel about the Chiefs. If you're not a
Hmm.
Chiefs fan, then it's kind of like Chiefs versus everybody.
Yeah.
Unless you're a Chiefs fan, of course, you're rooting for the Chiefs. Everybody else says anybody but the Chiefs,
Hmm.
anybody but the Chiefs to make it to the Super Bowl, to win the Super Bowl. We're just tired of this story. We don't want to see you win again, especially for all of us who have teams that are no longer even in the playoffs right now. So I feel like right now, if for anybody who is an NFL fan, they are Bills Mafia, at least this weekend,
Absolutely.
until further notice. Another thing that has been coming up in the headlines a lot this week, and it seems like in a lot of these Chiefs games, we're talking about the refs and the officiating. A lot of questions and controversy have been coming out, especially looking at this last game with the Chiefs versus the Texans. Unfortunately, it has just been repeated history since I want to say 2019. I was talking to a friend and he like watched this whole TikTok about these questionable calls from the refs
Hmm.
in favor of the Chiefs since 2019. But in the Chiefs versus the Texans game, there was a very questionable call for roughing the passer against Patrick Mahomes, and it had a lot of people all on socials just here we go with the Chiefs again. Here we go with the
Yeah.
Chiefs again. And this is going to be a big question that we will find out in the games this weekend about how are these refs going to respond? I don't know the names of the refs, but I know that that came out, and there's been a lot of like analysis about the wins and losses when this ref is officiating certain games. So it really is just Chiefs and refs versus everybody else. Even players are coming out and saying anybody but the Chiefs, including Marvin Humphrey, who is a Ravens player. You had people on the Texans in their post-game interviews saying, talking about and just raising questions about what the heck are these refs doing and why do the Chiefs have these guys in their pocket? So a lot of questions there, but it will really be a battle to the bitter end in this game. So Brooke, would love to know your thoughts on this matchup.
Oh my gosh. Well, first, like my thoughts on the refs and just how obvious they're getting. And like they know that the media is talking about them like this, yet they keep doing it. I was
Yeah.
watching the Chiefs Texans game, and I think there was two personal fouls called on the Texans against Patrick Mahomes. And one specifically really stood out to me where it was Patrick was running and two Texans defenders were going in to tackle him at the same time. Patrick slides and these two guys hit heads. The
Collide.
two
Yeah.
Texans collided with each other. They don't even touch Patrick.
He like falls under.
They literally like maybe breathed the same air as him for 1 second. Immediately 15-yard penalty. You hurt Patrick, or like, oh my God, you almost touched our little Pookie Bear. Like, how is that? What are you doing? Like, and they kept playing it in slow motion. And it gets to the point where even the announcers are like, I couldn't disagree with that call less.
Hmm.
Like, this is crazy. Like, you even have the people that I feel like the voices over the game. They're not supposed to be talking about how the refs are all for the Chiefs, and they can't even hide it anymore. They're just like,
Yeah.
that's ridiculous. Like those two guys did not even touch Patrick Mahomes, yet you're calling a penalty for 15 yards on them. And so it's not that like I don't have anything personally, obviously, against the Chiefs themselves. Like, obviously, we love Travis Kelce. Like, I don't even have anything against Patrick Mahomes. I think they just turn the whole league against them because they keep getting this favoritism treatment of them. And it's very unfair. And every team who plays them feels it. And so it's like, yeah, I
Yeah.
don't want to see this team continue to, be the darlings of the NFL and get all this favoritism. Another funny thing, just while I'm on people like announcing the game, Tom Brady was talking about how impressive it was that the Chiefs have done what they've done. He was announcing over the Lions Commanders games. And he of course brings up the Chiefs. And he was saying, it's really hard to like have a good team multiple years in a row because things change, like the roster and the coaching staff and just the dynamics of the league. So it's really, really impressive. Tom Brady said this, to be able to have a team that's that good for that many years. And I was like, Tom Brady, give it a rest. We know you're talking about yourself. Like, we know you were talking about Patriots Dynasty right now. And I was like, you need to relax. Like, I don't know if you think we're stupid, but he like was talking about this whole big speech about how amazing and impressive the Chiefs are. And it was like,
he's like, I know from experience.
Yeah. And I'm like, just say you want to talk about yourself a little bit more, Tom Brady. Like, it's fine. Like, we're reading between the lines. We know you're talking about your dynasty. So I just thought that was funny. That has nothing to do with this game, but obviously it is impressive what the Chiefs are doing. It's funny. My sister's boyfriend is a massive Bills fan, and he's like us, where he like gets so stressed before the games. Like, he's like ride or die. His whole family is like big Bills fans. And I was asking her, I was like, oh my gosh, like, he must be super nervous for the Bills Ravens game. I talked to her before the game on this past weekend. And she was like, honestly, like, he would rather have them lose to the Ravens and be out earlier than lose again to the Chiefs. And I felt that to my core.
Yeah.
I was like, that, and I feel like you feel that as a Bengals fan too, of just like, I can handle losing. It sucks, but we can handle it. When it comes to losing to the Chiefs, it's a different heartbreak.
It really
Especially
is.
for the Bills that now, Josh Allen has lost 3 times in the playoffs to Patrick Mahomes after, we saw that he's capable of beating him in the regular season this year. They were truly the only team to beat them in the regular season. They lost to the Broncos too, but that was in the last game of the season when all their starters were sitting. So that game doesn't count.
Yeah.
Like you said, every single person who is not a Kansas City Chiefs fan is going to be riding so hard for the Bills to win their first Super Bowl, to make it past this roadblock of the Chiefs, to stop them from that three-peat. But I hate to say it, like, I think the Chiefs are like somehow destined to get this three-peat. And they've beat the Bills in the playoffs before, as we've mentioned. And if it's against the Eagles, they beat them in the Super Bowl before. And the Commanders, again, like, it's a rookie team. They haven't been to the Super Bowl in a while. And it's crazy because it seems like the Chiefs three-peat is like, it's 2 wins away, and it's 2 wins against teams that they are very capable of beating in these environments. So it's getting really real.
And what's one thing that just bothers me about all of this? And like, again, no hate to the Chiefs, but it does seem like the favoritism has been coming out just a little bit more through referee calls and all of that. But something that I've been keeping an eye on is the viewership in the NFL, no matter what streaming service, if the Chiefs are playing, like the viewership it's like the most watched game of the season.
Oh,
So
wow.
when I think the NFL knows that the Chiefs are bringing the viewership, and a part of me thinks that because viewership means dollars, means more money, they want to see that through all the way to the Super Bowl. Because if they weren't in the Super Bowl, I mean, the Bills do have a big fan base, but even though a lot of people are like Bills or Chiefs versus, everybody, I don't know how that would come out in viewership. So that's also something that has just been really interesting, because it does seem like they would of course never come out and say this, but every single Chiefs game that there is, like, there's always like so many people watching, and it's probably because of the Taylor Swift effect, but in the NFL's eyes, it just means more money.
Exactly. No, that's a really interesting stat. And I think you're 100% right, where it's like the NFL is a corporation. They are trying to make money. All of these networks that are airing the games are trying to make money. They're going to make more money if it's the Chiefs game that they're playing, and more people are going to be tuning in. I feel like Bills have a much more like intense and loyal fan base, whereas the Chiefs just have maybe the largest fan base because they have all the casual fans, and they have all the Swifties that have now joined in and didn't have a team to root for. And it's easy to root for a team that wins every single game. So I get it. I get why it makes sense from a business reason to have the Chiefs in if you are doing numbers with them. And that's just, the numbers don't lie, but it's also just like, it's frustrating. We want to see something different. And it has to, I hate when it's just like, oh, it just can't all be about money, but like it is. And like, I don't want it to be. Like,
I know.
make it be fair.
I know, exactly. And the one thing that I want to see is Bills fans going to the Super Bowl because I do think that they have one of the most loyal fan bases, and I just would
Mhm.
like love that for them. And they got a whole culture at the tailgates that it's just like I would love to go to a Bills tailgate. It would be
I
so fun,
know.
eating chicken wings, eating hot dogs, slamming on tables,
Yeah,
like
I want to
let's
slam on a
get
table.
it.
Well, let's
But
manifest getting ourselves to a Bills
yeah.
tailgate.
Yeah. And there's a player that really like exemplifies the like just crazy Bills Mafia spirit. His name is Matt Collins.
Mhm.
And throughout this whole season, he has just been coming into the locker room, no shoes on. It's
Yeah,
snowing outside, no
of course
shoes.
not.
He was wearing like a mad scientist outfit. He was wearing this like Wolverine bear type of fit. He is just like living and breathing Bills, and I love it. And it's also just he's completely dressed up in costume. So I feel like he's a really fun guy just overall and so I'm kind of cheering for him too. I went on
I
his
would love that.
Instagram and he has like affirmations on there and like how to set up he didn't call it like New Year's resolutions. I forget what he called it, but he's like, here's how you execute and organize and plan and then like be grateful and show gratitude. It was really,
Oh,
it's really
cutie.
sweet.
I'm gonna give him a follow. That's
Yeah.
nice.
So we're ready for your game day fit, Mr. Mac.
I love that. That's so fun. And even like just going back to like Bills fans, I also saw that they've donated like thousands of dollars to Mark Andrews' charity that he
Yeah.
supports. And it's like that is such a classy move. And like they feel bad for him that he dropped the ball when they could have tied it up at the last minute. And they're like,
Yes.
while we're also celebrating that we're happy that we won, like let's make sure we give back to the team that we just beat. And I think that you don't say that very often in sports, and that's very
Mhm.
beautiful.
Yeah. We and
We
they've
love
done
you,
it.
Bills Mafia.
Yeah, and they do it all the time with what happened with Damar Hamlin.
Hmm.
They were donating to T. Higgins' organization when Tyler Bass missed like a field goal last year in the
Oh yeah.
playoffs. Like that is just their spirit. And I'll always root for the Bills if the Bengals, unless they're
Yeah.
playing the
Now that our
Bengals.
teams are long gone,
Now that they're out of
we
here.
have to cheer for someone else,
Yeah.
and we are cheering for the Bills.
Yes, exactly. Any final thoughts on the games? Big weekend.
Big weekend. When you said the AFC championship game was like our Super Bowl, yeah, I felt that. That game, I am going to be locked in. I'm going to be watching it closely, just praying for a Bills victory. Like I think I'm cheering for the Commanders too, just because I really like this Jaden Daniels story. But if the Eagles won, I'd
Yeah.
be like, okay, you know what? Like I like the Eagles too. Like I do want the Eagles to succeed. I think an Eagles Bills Super Bowl would just be just wild fan bases.
So wild. Yeah.
Absolutely nuts. Like that would be kind of scary to see those two fan bases meeting in New Orleans. You think about like Washington Commanders fans coming out to New Orleans, and it's like they're all probably like, none of us thought we'd be here. Like, hey, how y'all doing? Like, they're like
Literally.
getting their beads with the Mardi Gras. They're getting their little whatever, the catfish, and they're just
This
like,
is
huh?
nice.
So like I want to see a fan base that just didn't expect at all to be there to make it. So like
Yeah.
I mean it's like all the memes that are like the Super Bowl we want to see, Bills Commanders, the Super Bowl we're gonna get again is Chiefs Eagles. And
Yeah.
I just hope one of the teams that we want makes it in and then we can just jump on that bandwagon so hard.
Yeah, I agree. I unfortunately just don't want to see another game of the Eagles and Chiefs when we just saw it. And it no harm against either teams, but it's
Yeah.
just like let's see some new guys in there
Yeah.
chasing
Give
their
someone else a
dreams.
chance. We'll
We'll
see what
see.
happens this weekend. I really
Yes.
hope that we were saying the Chiefs are our biggest losers and maybe even the Eagles are our biggest losers. And we just, we're riding with Josh and Jaden, J Train.
Well, we would love to report back on how these games go and share some exciting news next week.
Ooh, a little teaser. We
A
do
little
have something cooking for you guys.
Yes, yes. We
Can't
can't
reveal
wait.
yet.
Yes. So make sure to tune in.
Yay. We love you guys.
See you next time.
Bye.